Are we ready to roll?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, we're going.
Okay. All right, well, I have 4:34, and at this time, we will call the meeting of the Kansas City Commission to order. And with that, Mayor Pro Tem, would you lead us in invocation?
I'd love to. We all pray with me. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you so much for all that you do for us, Father. We thank you for the city and those who serve it, Father. I thank you for the continued protection of the men and women of the city of Kenyon, those who work in the city and also those who live in the city. Father, be with us today as we make decisions about the future of our city. Father, be with our leaders, whether it be here locally, in the state, or nationally, Father. And just give us guidance, Father. Help us when we mess it up. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Place your right hand on your heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, takes us to approval of the minutes of the meeting of December 7th, 2020. Got those before us.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, takes us to item number 5, public comment. Comments from interested citizens. Do we have anybody with this idea?
Nothing.
Item number 6, consider and take appropriate action on update of Governor Greg Abbott's executive orders directed at slowing the spread of COVID-19 in the state of Texas. Joe, you will consult on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our updated numbers are 271 active cases, 1,776 recovered, and 28 deaths as of today, is what I'm seeing right now. So, and that excludes WTs that have 57 cases. So those are our current numbers as we speak. In regard to vaccine, most of the information the city of Kenyon is getting on that is from the Department of State Health Services website. I think they're on week 4 of vaccine. United Pharmacy has received 300, and they received that on week 2. We visited with them, John Burns and myself, and we talked to them. Those have already come and gone. And we did put some publicity out about that vaccine. There has not been any other entities in town that have had a vaccine like publicly at the onset of this. So that was week 2. They didn't get the week 1 round, they got the week 2. Week 3 went past, and then week 4 they got another 100. I believe those have already come and gone as well. Is that right, John?
Yes.
And so, in part of that discussion with Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, I know one of the areas that we had talked about is making sure the assisted living facilities and nursing homes in town were getting taken care of. John, would you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, as we checked with the nursing homes 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, Joe, Tech was walking in the doors at Sky West. They had an appointment at the second home, and the third home was making arrangements with them. So it's my understanding that Tech is taking care of the nursing homes. Family Medicine got 100 doses last week.
Yes.
They turned to Paladura Village, called them, and they had 70 residents out of Paladura Village that made appointments and took advantage of that. So we felt really good about that. We feel like those needs have been addressed kind of around us without us even knowing it. Because we were calling to see what we could do to help them, and they're like, Tech's walking in the door right now. So we felt real good about that.
Was it a Connor house that was waiting for Walgreens maybe?
Yes, Connor had said we've made arrangements with Walgreens and didn't need anything. I mean, I asked, do we need something else? No, we're taking care of it.
Most of them are going on site, I believe. And I
Yes,
think
that's what Tech did.
they're doing both worker and
Staff and
residents.
Yes.
So those needs are being met in town, kind of behind the vaccines, so just an FYI on that. We haven't heard of any more vaccines coming. Did talk to City Council lady Freya Powell in Amarillo, and she just wanted us to let everybody know if there are people here that they are more than welcome to go to the Amarillo Civic Center to get that vaccine. I know several people have, and apparently they're doing an outstanding job of having a line with chairs and doing all that. So the wait times, I know this weekend went down quite a bit. So
Yeah, and I think they dropped on like Thursday or Friday last week. They ran out, but then they started back up again. I think Cody on Saturday. Were you aware of that?
I think it was today.
And then they got back again today.
they're going through quite a bit. So our residents can still go there, but there's not much left in town. I know Fake Medical's sister place in Amarillo has some, where they did when John and I talked to them a couple of weeks ago, but we didn't have any here locally. So everyone locally that's had them have gone through it, which is a good thing. We've gone through 400 vaccines that we received locally. So we've been updating every week. I haven't looked at this today. It may come out tomorrow, I think, on who will get it for week 5. So we're continuously putting that out there. And John and I, or both of us, or Gary, are visiting with those entities and letting them know, hey, we're putting this out on social media, just FYI. So it's been pretty well received.
United has a waiting list. Meta Drive has not received anything, but they've created a waiting list also of people that have contacted them, so they want to be able to contact people quickly. Dr. Gross was going through, his physicians were going through their client list, and they were going to reach out to those, create their own list out of that and reach out to those people. So everybody seems to be being proactive.
Yep, for sure. Okay, and so, Mayor, if you want to add anything to that?
I might just throw out, I think at this point, it looks like the numbers of availability, the larger numbers for Canyon residents is also through Amarillo Area Health and what they're doing up at the Civic Center. And so I think we have worked to put out on the website and also on Facebook that availability. But I think it is just encouraging folks that those really are, that's the avenue right now we're seeing available in Canyon. So encouraging folks to get up there and make use of that too. So, and I think if there's anything, the commission seeing that we need to put out there, ways to get that out there. One I put out there, if it continues to go down this road, I even wonder if we explore the possibility of doing something down here in our community center 1 week or so too. So I don't know. I think we can explore some of those things, but if any of you all have any better ideas or some communication we need to put out, we'd love to do this the very best we can. So.
I think it'll be better to, once we get some more availability, we'll be able to get some work with one of our clinics in town.
Hopefully we see that, and hopefully family medicine, center you'd think would be one that would get some larger numbers that they'll see. So.
That's what they say too. That's what Dr. Gross keeps saying too, that it just hadn't come around yet. And that's part of their reasons we're trying to work off those lists, Gary, is that they don't want to just put out that we got 300, they don't want 1,000 people standing in the line. Because United's still trying to get heart medicine to the individual that's standing there trying to get heart medicine or get their thyroid medicine. They're still trying to operate in that manner. Dr. Gross has stated previously that if we ever got enough, that they would be interested in helping us do something. And I think Northwest Texas would do that, but the other 2 pharmacies are really about scheduling appointments, limited number of people, getting shots, and getting people in town.
We do have Anthony Spinelli, Director of Environmental Health. Just so everybody remembers, environmental health was like a lot of the septic tanks we do here out in the areas that have them, especially in the rural county. Works with planning and development pretty often in regards to that. He also does all the regulations in town with restaurants and health. So where other cities that are under 50 or 25,000 have DSHS as their health district, the state does it, but being that we have the actual health district here, the city of Amarillo provides that service instead of the state of Texas. Everywhere else across the entire panhandle, the state of Texas does it. But Anthony does the environmental side. He can give you all any information you want to know about the ordinance Emerald did and all that stuff, and some of their efforts. Well, the other side of this is the public health side, which is under the same umbrella where Casey Stoughton is. So just two different avenues, just to let you know. So but Anthony's on the environmental health and has a staff of how much?
Approaching 20.
20 staff. So they're doing all the permitting for septic, restaurants, health, anything else Anthony's in there that I'm missing.
Sure. Our water program, sanitary nuisances, vector control.
So weeds and mosquitoes and all that. So Anthony.
Well, I brought a couple things to talk to you guys about. Casey wasn't able to make it. She's doing the vaccine clinic tonight. I definitely appreciate your time. And, I'll give her an update as well. Speaking about the Civic Center vaccination clinic, to date they've had a total of 17,000 doses of Moderna vaccine delivered to them. We've given out, as of this morning, about 12,800 of those doses, leaving roughly 4,200 doses remaining. That does cover the district. Your citizens are more than willing to go to the Civic Center and get those shots. I've heard nothing but good things from them. They're in and out. They've got a whole thing set up to get citizens in and out. Roughly about 15, 20 minutes, and then we're back to you.
That's the time wait you're hearing right now.
15 to 20 minutes. Now, as this thing further opens up, those lines get a lot longer. Okay. So we opened up to the 1B group last week. That's 65 and older or 18 plus with a health condition, and they did get up to 4-hour waits on some of them. Okay. Just right when they first opened up. So as it continues to open up to more and more unrestricted people, the waits are going on. But that clinic will open up as long as they have doses available, and they have roughly 4,200 as of this morning.
Those 1B conditions are very vast. I want to point that out. If you've not seen the list of things, it's pretty vast.
Sure.
Asthma is one.
Yep.
Pregnancy. So there's some vastness in there.
They were vaccinating group 1A and group 1B at this time. It's on the honor system, so they're not looking for doctors. No, they're not really turning people away. It's on the honor system. The goal is to vaccinate as much people as possible. The clinic is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at this time. Like I said, as long as that vaccine is available. They are running Saturday clinics from 9 to 2 as well. They did run out last Saturday, last week, but we got a shipment of vaccines in again. So they'll open that clinic up just as long as they got that vaccine.
Remind us where that clinic is at.
It's at the Civic Center. It is the North Exhibit Hall? That's correct. Yep. So you enter entrance number 3. It's the northernmost entrance of the Civic Center. As you'll enter, and it'll be through a whole bunch of stuff they have set up to get into the vaccine. I'm going to answer a couple of the very common questions we get asked, and we'll go ahead and just stay on. Second doses are already planned and allocated. So once you get your first, you're put into a queue for your second, or automatically. So you won't run out or be left out for your second dose. This is a two-dose vaccine. Moderna vaccine, you have to get a second dose after the 28th day. One of the common questions we have is, can I get it early? No, you can't. It has to be a 28-day waiting. What if I wait too long? Is there such a thing as I wait too long after starting? And there's not. As long as you wait for 28 days, you can get your second booster dose. The Pfizer vaccine has a 21-day wait period, so you can get it on day 22, and it's the same process. The Civic Center is Moderna products that have some other clinics and give Pfizer product. If you go to the Civic Center, they'll give you a card. Or if you go anywhere else, they'll give you a card with a lock number or which product you have. It's very essential you bring that card back for faster process. I want to talk about our district numbers as of today. Our hospitalization rate is 22.08%. Active cases, 3,169. We have had a total in the district of just a little over 30,000 cases, a little over 10%. Total recoveries, 26,782. And total deaths for Potter County, 536 as of today. Couple updates for environmental health. We did pass Ordinance 7893, which is our pandemic emergency measure ordinance in November of 2020. It was in response to almost a 43% hospitalization rate. I'm going to go over some of the criteria here, but it applies to any business with greater than 10 persons on site at a time. It does exempt a few places like governmental entities, medical facilities, childcare programs, churches, and residential homes. Essentially, this ordinance has a trigger point. As long as we are defined as a high hospitalization area, it will automatically go into effect. And when we drop down below that 15% hospitalization rate, it will come out. So it was written that way. The minimum standards are consistent with executive orders and open Texas guidelines and state laws that are already in existence today, such as our sanitary nuisance laws. This does basically provide an enforcement ability for businesses that don't follow those criteria. And we didn't have it. But I want to be clear on that process. So we educate, warn, and enforce. That's the same thing that we've already had in place. Same thing that we do with every program that we have. To date, since March, we've investigated a little over 2,000 COVID-specific complaints, and we wrote our first notice of violation last week. So what that means is our community is responding quite well to it. I'm very grateful for that. We've got really good relationships with our businesses, Canyon, Amarillo, Potter, Marion County, for the most part. And when we go out and identify something, it's most businesses take it pretty serious, and they want to work with us to get that correct. And we're making a big impact out there. I do want to point out, when we started that ordinance, our hospitalization rate was 42%. Today, it's 22%. It's about a 50% drop. While this ordinance is not the only reason that has dropped, I would like to say it has an effect. Our community is taking it a lot more serious than we potentially were in the team. And I can say I go out and I talk to the public, and I talk to our business owners quite often. I see a lot more masking, a lot more distancing, a lot more people taking these measures seriously. I'm very grateful for that. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have, but those my
Any other concerns you see out there, or out in the community, or any other things we need to try to mitigate, or what?
I think COVID's our number one deal right now. I think in terms of people coming to work sick, that's the biggest issue that we see when we conduct our investigations. Is folks will have some sort of symptom, a cough, a cold, a sneeze, uncontrollably sneezing, not really feeling well, but still going to work. So if you push the message to your citizens, that would be one of the things that I would highlight is if you're not feeling well, don't work. That's probably the biggest thing you can do to help us out. Stay home, utilize that time off, or utilize your time to recover.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How long after you've had COVID do you have to wait to get the vaccine?
You just can't have any symptoms, so you can't be actively sick. So if you have COVID, it's about a 10-day recovery. Some people take 20 days, some people take a little bit longer, depending upon underlying health conditions. But say you're more on the normal side. It takes you about 10 days, as long as you're not actively sick, cough, cold, fever, congestion, any of that, you can get the vaccine. And I've had my first round of vaccine, and I only had one symptom of this life. I took two Tylenol, but your arm does get kind of sore, so I would recommend it.
Well, I did hear back, kind of report back from Powder Village or Canyon, which was maybe the largest place that they did numbers wise, and I don't think they had any issues there. So.
They also give you the opportunity to sign up for Be Safe, so you can kind of help them build a database. When you get your first shot, you can scan a QR code, sign up for Be Safe. That helps CDC build a database. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Anthony, appreciate you coming down
Absolutely.
and reaching out to us. And, appreciate what y'all do for us.
Yes, sir.
Any other question from the commission? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us now to item number 7, the first reading of resolution number 01-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon project funding agreement between Mandy Williams, DBA Cake Company of Canyon, and the Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to funding, building improvements, and business expansion. Evelyn, you presenting this or Dawn? Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready, Dawn. Are you ready?
I don't have much to say. You guys have a memo from Evelyn that's in your packet that talks about this expansion. This is $1,000 square foot to the existing footprint of the Canyon Cake Company. They added an additional space, there'll be more baking stations, relocation of office, and designated break room for the employees. They'll also plan to add 24 new products to the current offering, and will allow more customers to be served at once. Project, this is the first reading, so no actions taken on your part, and the project will not exceed $40,000.
Any questions for Dawn? I guess you got it covered, Dawn.
That's the way we like it.
Pretty short, sweet. Thank you. All right, well, that is first reading only, so it's a discussion item. So with that, we'll go ahead and move to item number 8. To consider and take appropriate action on authorization for the city manager to enter into a contract with Freeze and Nichols for the development of a downtown master plan. John?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. We, at your last meeting, you all gave Joe approval to go ahead and negotiate, begin discussions with Freeze and Nichols, because you all had selected them as the leading firm in their presentations. Chance Sparks, the project manager for Freeze and Nichols, has gotten back to us with this scope of work, professional service agreement. As I read through that, it seemed to hit everything that we'd asked for in our RFQ. It seemed to hit the areas that we felt like were important. I know one of the areas that you all were impressed with when they did their presentations was the economics area, and talking about how we were going to fund those things and our options and those type things. And so we had some conversations related to that previously, Chance and I, and also talked about the fact that the scope, like any good scope, needs to be somewhat flexible, and we need to be able to kind of, as we move into the work, that there's an area where we're like, yeah, I think we're spending enough time on that area. I think we've got that covered. Let's spend a little more time in this area where we can tweak that, and he was certainly open to that. I think on a project like this, that's important, because they're going to come in and they may say, oh, these ducks are all in a row. Let's not spend any more time on this. Let's move into some other area. So I feel confident they'll be able to do that. And I know Chuck and Joe have both been reading through that, and if they have any comments regarding that.
Pretty standard stuff. They got their engagement plan in here. They're going to do several site visits and then several virtuals, so just to be mindful on that. So the duration of the project as it stands right now is a 15-month project.
And the only thing I noted is, we'll just update where it provides for the city council, just insert the word city commission. That's about all I saw with it. The first comprehensive plan in one place, but it's downtown master plan. I have nothing substantive that I noticed today.
Neither did I.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize Canyon City Manager Joe Price to enter into a contract on behalf of the city with Freeze and Nichols for the development of a downtown master plan.
Second.
We have a motion and second to authorize City Manager Joe Price to enter into a contract with Freeze and Nichols. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes 5-0. All right, item number 9 is consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1134, an ordinance of the City of Canyon, Texas, amending Title 11 business regulations of the City of Canyon Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 119, bicycle and scooter sharing, providing for severability, providing for repealer, providing for penalty, and providing for an effective date. John, looks like you've got
Yes, sometime back in history lesson, back in 2017, sometime back in there, all of a sudden, scooters appeared at various locations around the country. And scooters weren't the first form of mass transportation that were dumped on cities, as it would be the correct word to be used. They started off with bicycles, and they were docked bicycles, which meant you had a docking station, and I could go to this station, I could use my credit card, and I could go from this station to the next docking station, and it was locked at those locations. Those early bicycles had concrete-like tires. They weren't rubber tires. They were like your old tricycle tires. They were something along those lines. They built an indestructible type bicycle. Well, quickly those groups found out, and this is like 15, 16, 17, quickly those groups found out that wasn't working for people. We rarely want to go from point A to point B. I always want to go to point C, and B's out of the way for me, and I don't have any intention of going there. So they found out that wasn't working. So they took that same model, they took those bicycles, they improved the quality of those bicycles to a degree, and then we got into GPS, in the cloud, every bike can be standalone. I can swipe my card on my bike, I can go wherever I want to with my bike, and we will be able to monitor that bike and know where that bike is. Well, that put the docking bike people out of business, and those people took over. Big cities, Dallas, they were everywhere. Bikes were everywhere. In front of all buildings, on sidewalks, bikes were piled up. Bikes end up at various locations. Bikes have to be relocated. It's an interesting business because I have to go and gather those back up because they always get dumped at some location that's not good for in the morning. In the morning, I need them in a specific place where people pick up bikes. So we have to hire people to move those bikes to a new location, relocate them. The way that they brought those to many cities and many universities were they showed up in the middle of the night and they just put them out there. And when they just magically appear, people are excited about them and people think they're a great thing. And then they would turn to the cities and say, oh, we didn't know there was a process. We didn't know there was something we were supposed to do. But don't you see how the people really like those? And the people would say, yes, we really like those, we want those. So they kind of maneuvered themselves into position. Okay, bicycles. Now, bicycles took some energy. Bicycles I might have to perspire while I ride a bicycle. And bicycles are fun, but they're not the funnest. So scooter people were created. And scooter businesses, Lime, Bird, and other large firms were created. They took the same approach. They came in and they dropped themselves on cities, including Dallas-Fort Worth. Many times they're around the university specifically, but in the big cities, Austin, everywhere. We would drop them overnight. The article out of the Lubbock paper when they dropped them talked about how cool it was, and that the reporter drove around town the first day, and everyone was at the tire store was not changing tires. They were out riding scooters in the tire store parking lot. I mean, they were enamored with them. People liked them. Quickly, the city said, we don't have any rules, we can't govern this, we don't have an ordinance, we don't know what to do. Austin was an early adopter, as you can imagine, to scooters. They started rules and started trying to fill that out. They formed large committees, if you can imagine that, in Austin, and they figured out what they wanted to do and what they were, how fast they could go and where they wanted them. And they were all about it. And then accidents began to happen on scooters. Some universities said we don't want scooters. Some said we only want them on our campus, but the city said we don't want them. So the world began to change for scooter people, scooter businesses. They were some of the fastest growing businesses financially around. All of a sudden they just blew up. About that time, 2019, student government at WT came to the administration and said we're interested in scooters. We were probably certainly not on the leading or cutting edge of the scooter world. We would be lagging a little bit like we do often in the Panhandle, but they wanted that. So I attended a meeting. Student government really wanted that. We worked with Sean Burns, worked with their purchasing. They went out for an RFP. They had one firm respond to the RFP a year ago. We started, Danny and I, thanks Danny, and we began working on an ordinance of our own. Kind of put it on the back burner because there wasn't anything happening. COVID did away with many of the scooter and bike sharing type businesses. They died. There's only 2 or 3 left, according to what I read, business magazines or online. There's only 2 or 3 that survived COVID, and they're still around. And one of those businesses has been working with WT and would like to get WT's business. If you read through, or when you read through our ordinance, it says that in order to have a permit from us, a license to operate here, you must have a contract with the university. Because the driving force for this, and the people that will be using it the majority of the time, will be our university population. We also knew that we didn't want to permit with someone or license a firm that would be all over town and then be going on the campus if the campus didn't want them. They can geofence these. They can set their exact perimeters. As I stated earlier, they know where they are. They go pick them up. They return them to their locations. Our ordinance talks about the fact that we want that to happen. Our ordinance talks about the fact that we want to follow up with them on the repairs. It is a limited number that they can put out to begin with. It goes through and, for the most part, tells them exactly how they can operate in our city. WT is close to signing their contract. They have their contract. They've been reading it. It's my understanding that they're prepared to sign that. They're purchasing folks. The WT is ready to move ahead. So it's time for us, if we want them in Canyon, to pass this ordinance. One location, if you read it here, is that within a block of the square, we've said that's not a location that you can ride your scooter. And the reason we did that is, however, we do know that the square is a location they'll want to go. We also know that any business on the square would probably acknowledge in our current traffic patterns and our current parking patterns that someone on a small scooter going 15 miles an hour behind all of those cars might lead to some problems. Roger, with a business there, would you say that?
Absolutely.
Could possibly be a problem? And we really don't have a lot of great locations down on the square for them to park, for their scooters to stay, other than on sidewalks. And that's not our intent. If you read in here, our intent is to avoid sidewalks, avoid crosswalks, avoid handicap ramps, avoid those locations where we need to be getting across with the scooters. That's a long story. Again, I appreciate Danny. Danny had a lot to do with this, but that kind of gives you the history of scooters and where we are with them.
Let John write the history book on scooters. You know,
I already called it next time I'll No, I can see from everyone's expression that is a moment, that is time that you'll never get back, and this time you'll always remember. So I appreciate that.
We'll spend your next time on scooters.
Yes, yes. So I can answer questions, Danny and I can, about the ordinance.
So will there be docks for them, place?
No, everything is dockless now. That whole technology got left behind.
They send people to come out and deal with them, maybe.
Hey, what?
They send people to come out and
So
deal
when
with them.
someone gets done with it, they just leave it set?
Yes.
Yes. And we've asked locations, and they help us with that. They pick them up, truck, van. They will jump out in their orange vest. They will pick them up. They will relocate them at night. They will work on them. They can know all kinds of things about that transportation. They know exactly where they are. Literally, if Cody abuses his privilege on the scooter, they can take him off the scooter list. He wouldn't be able to get one again.
No-fly list.
If they felt like this. Yes, the no-fly list. In the big cities where they pull out the bicycle people and the scooter people, I will let you know, if we confiscate them, Danny, it's $100 or $150 for them to get a scooter back. If we confiscate a scooter, that scooter ends up in water, that's confiscation, we take them, those kind of things. When they pull out of cities, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. They don't take anything with them. So in Dallas, there is somewhere in the city of Dallas at some dump yard with hundreds of bicycles because the bicycle people pulled out. Their investment is very low. The number that they're going to bring in here is not going to be astronomical. I think it's a manageable number. I think that we have to give a firm a shot at being able to do that. And the ordinance does allow us to say, hey, you're not meeting, this is not working for us. We want to back out of that.
So down on the square, there's going to be a place for them to park their scooters when they come down here?
At this point in time, we say where they can't be, we will need to work with them on, we talk about the fact that we can create parking zones. We can create some zones if we choose to. And on the square, we would probably choose to create some zones where somewhere maybe over near Nebula Park, there may be a location for us to be able to find some locations that say, this is where we want you to park. But literally, Paul, if they wanted to, it would die. They would kill it. They could kill it at specific locations, and the scooter would just stop. We have met with Chief. I've met with Chief Brush. We've talked about it. Chief Brush has been through this. Our previous police chief was on board with it. Went through it. It meets the transportation rules as far as it's got a red light. It's got reflectors. Lights stay on for 90 seconds, I believe it is, after the scooter has stopped. It meets basic regulations there.
John, do they pick those up every night then?
They would relocate those at night, yes, because it would get dropped. They want them in locations like, you would think around the residence halls would be a good place to load them up. But if I take one and let's say I ride it out to Brown Road and I drop at Brown Road, and then my buddy gives me a ride, I'm going to leave that at Brown Road. Well, there's probably not going to be a lot of riders that begin their ride at Brown Road. So they'll know that, and they'll know, we got to go get that one. Or I would assume that as they look at how they go to apartment complexes, if they don't see them coming back to campus or coming back again, if they see one just sitting there too long, then they'll determine that's not a good location. I need to put that back in a location that will have walk-up traffic to continue another ride. Downtown Austin, the average ride was 1.5 miles, 2 miles. At some point in time in Austin, net, what I could tell from reading the article I read, their net in Austin, again, would be much larger scale than we would ever see. $300,000 a month based on short rides. A dollar I'm on, 15 cents a mile, whatever, but enough rides. I don't see us being overwhelmed with them here, simply because of our weather, and typically we're in large trucks.
Any negatives on our part?
Doesn't them in the right of way, and people tripping and running over.
And they found that out. I mean, that was where, originally, again, I keep using Austin as our poster child, but we know they are. Everybody was excited, and it worked great, and they were everywhere. And then they started to have them on the sidewalk piled up. You can't get to my business, or accidents.
run gravelways, you know.
And so our ordinance covers all of those different things. Bottom line, it's gonna come down to who their manager is, and if those people, when there's problems, if those people are able to work with us. We ask for cell phone numbers, we ask for local man phone numbers, we ask for the local people, not just the national corporation. All of those things are in here where we attempt to manage that. And the only advertising that can be on it is for the local higher education institution, and you must have a contract with them in order to have a license with us.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor is a proud owner of a Honda Ruckus, which is. I would be the leader of this scooter community. Mine's motorized, and I'm a fat guy, and they'll be able to see me on it. I move to adopt ordinance 1134 in accordance with amending title Business Regulations of the City of Canyon City Ordinance by adding Chapter 119, bicycle and scooter sharing, providing for severability, providing for repealer, providing for penalty, and providing for an effective date.
Second. A motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
I will notify WT that we have passed the ordinance.
leader of the pack.
Son of a cane coming right at
Should you have any concerns ever related to this issue, Danny Cornelius's offices are located on the first floor. Please contact them immediately.
All right, thank you, John.
you.
Okay, that takes us now to item number 10, to consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 02-2021, ordering a general election to be held on the first day of May 2021 for the purpose of electing 5 members of the Canyon City Commission, Mayor Place 1 and Places 2, 3, 4, and 5, designating polling places, ordering notices of election to be given, authorizing execution of joint election contract, providing for a repealing clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Gretchen, looks like you got this one.
Well, it's time to call our election for May, general election. We'll be accepting applications for place on the ballot starting this Wednesday, the 13th, through Friday, February 12th at 5. We'll contract with the county again. We'll split costs with all the other entities, so that could be Summit City of Amarillo, Hospital District, anybody else that has an election. So we're looking at probably $10,000 for our part, and that pays all the judges, ballots, everything we choose. So we just need to get that call so we can move on.
Well, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve and adopt resolution 2/2021, ordering a general election to be held on the first day of May 2021 for the purpose of electing Mayor Place 1 and Commission Places 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the city of Canyon.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 5-0. And with that, we now go to item number 11, to consider, take appropriate action on bids received
Thank you, Mayor. This will be our first opportunity to take advantage of the water rights that we purchased in the Spring Canyon subdivision. They've been, early on, there were some studies done, when I say early on, during the process, there were studies done as to where we could find some locations and spacing and this and that. But, this well will be moved somewhat from our test hole locations. We feel pretty confident, though, that there's not that much difference in what's out there. So we thought of it, we partnered with CISD and came up with this location, which is on the campus of the elementary school. Everything in the base bid is just for drilling the well itself and casing it, and the site work portion. The pump, the column pipe, all the other stuff, electrical, all the other stuff required to actually have a working well is in the alternate bid. The plan is to do an interlocal agreement with the school district to pay, let them pay for their part, which is basically, they'll need a different pump, different pipe, and things like that we'll need when we take this thing over well down the road in the future. So we're gonna let the school district pay for actually equipping the well, and then we'll pay for the drill. And we'll be working on our local agreement with them to take care of that. As well as, there's gonna be a small water rate involved in that. We might be able, that way we can recoup some of our money and charge them a total amount for the water that they use. And they agree with that. So, the bid tabulation sheets, the second to last sheet in your packet for this item. And base bid was $265,135. The alternate bid was $89,605. The total bid amount of $354,740. A little unfortunate, we just had the same bid. We did have a pre-bid meeting. Everything was, we had two contractors show up to the pre-bid meeting, and I think the logistics of the site kind of probably scared the other contractor away. It's going to be a tough site, and just because it's part of the school's already been built, we've got things that are kind of in the way. I mean, in a perfect world, the thing would have been for us to get in there and get out before the school ever started. But that just wasn't in the cards. The timing was off. We had some budget issues. We didn't really know how we were going to fund the thing to begin with. So that caused the delay in the bid. We had the project available to bid for some time. We're just not able to. And you can see on the bid tabulation that we're really paying for it on that site. That's the item. The item 13 on the base bid, the site work, you can see it's about $68,000. That's what cost us the money here for the delay. And if you take that down to what it should be, around $15,000 to $20,000, this will be well within the year's estimate.
So I know we usually take the lowest bid, where we only had one. Just, I mean, is it worth running more traps? That's $50,000 difference.
Well, Mayor, I think what you'll find is that you'll never recoup that $50,000, especially not in the second bid. It's tough when you only get two people to look at the job to start with, and it's even tougher when only one of them bids. I think the other well drillers probably saw it and probably chose not to deal with it, just due to the logistics of the site. That's my opinion.
It's a tough project.
It's a small site.
So how does this compare per foot to cost-wise to what we've been doing in the past, like Brown Rail?
Well, like I said, if you take that site work item down to about $20,000, which is what it normally is, it's this thing is almost like right exactly along White's estimate. I think his estimate was like $215 or something like that for construction. So everything else is right in line with what we've been doing.
What's the reason we're moving to this location instead of one we were originally in?
Well, there's a subdivision in the way now. In other words, can't answer why we didn't go ahead and lock that down early on, Paul, because I wasn't part of that discussion.
I thought we were adding them in each corner of the thing.
Well, that's basically correct. We had, the test holes were drilled basically in the center of the corners of the section, or where we could get to them easy. I agree, there's probably a better place out there closer to where we drill the test holes. But with the thing already being platted and being subdivided, the location was nailed down in the middle, and it should have been done that way. That's my only information. It was convenient to have the school come in because at the time we thought we were gonna have plenty of room and plenty of access, and it was easier logistically if we had started with a blank side of the school. Now we can't, so we're paying for it. Why it was never located out close to the southwest corner of the section where the original test holes were, I wish I had an answer for you. Those locations should have been nailed down early on with the water rights agreement.
Sanitary control easement.
Sanitary control easement, but that's also a lot easier with the school because it's 150-foot radius around that well. And we've moved the well to where the sanitary control easement is completely on the school property or in the street right.
We would run up against issues on a lot with that sanitary control easement.
Well, I mean, you'd have to have how many ever people that touch sign off on sanitary control.
That's right.
So you can wind up with 20 different others on the sanitary control. The sanitary control easement is a part of our TCP.
So we have three more sites, and are those pinned down there to where we've got our room? Or are we already on?
The only
on
thing
those
we
sites?
have pinned down is there's a conceptual map on the original developer's agreement, which is kind of hard to see, and that's kind of what was guiding us.
So I guess the question is then, do we need to pin that down in easements to where we don't have this issue in the future then? Or
Yes.
what?
We've made note of that. We're thinking we're on unit 3 moving north. It's probably going to be in unit 5 if we're continuing to move north. That's what we're thinking. So we're going to move, I think, north and then east. Is that right, you guys? Is the way we're going. So we'll go all the way up to Spring Lake. And so we got probably 2 more units before we hash that out. But we'll be a lot more prepared. The big part of it, with this one, is the school wants to use it for irrigation. And so the other ones will line out, we won't do it. We'll just line it out, get the easements, get everything we need, and go from there.
So would this one be better just to go ahead and hook up to us and sell the water back?
That's what I would personally.
Yeah, instead of just giving it to the school.
I mean, we could, Paul, we're probably looking at what, how many linear feet to our existing line tie-in from that side? It's a ways.
You're looking at probably having to lay 1.5 miles of transmission lines to get our water back to that. So,
$1 million?
we're looking at $1 million to lay a pipeline for a well. I don't know if that's just. We got really lucky with the school water use as well. And the water district has rules too that, well, and this is something we'll have to consider going forward, is that the water district rules require you to fully equip the well and use it, or they will permit it. So, the school helped us with that here because it'll be in use. Now, moving forward, we'll have to also understand how we're gonna run the traps around the water district and see, because these wells, my opinion is these wells were meant to be used well in the future. And besides having to get the transmission line to them and everything else, we'll just need to run those traps and see, because we'll have to equip them for the district won't permit it.
I'm just thinking, how do we get the transmission line to it now, though, if this all develops up? We have to go down through streets, or what do we have to do to?
Yes, we would in this situation. Out of the Spring Canyon situation, yes, we would.
That's what makes me wonder, Mayor, we'll need to be looking into all 4 of these wells and make some time out of that, instead of just jumping into this thing.
I think that makes sense to look at. Seems like it'd be a whole lot easier to get that done now than
intention to dig the wells many years down the road. I think it's been the intent from what I've been told, was many years down the road. However,
That's assuming we have the water rights set up right. Now we don't. So,
we do.
No, we do.
We do.
We do.
well, they just said it wasn't right. It's supposed to be in the four corners.
Well,
No, I'm just saying, this well location is moved off of where we drilled the
Yeah.
test holes.
Yeah, we all
It's just-
thought that for the well location was going to be.
I think there was some confusion on the actual well site when that's done, Paul. And I don't know if there was any real determining factors on that, even in the agreement with the road. I don't know, Chuck, I know you and Dwight worked on some of that.
Well, attached to the development agreement, there's some circles indicating the well location in the corner of the land that we kind of mapped out before that agreement was executed. This particular location, when we found out the developer was gonna sell the school side, then we coordinated with the Canyon United State on the location of the well in connection with the school side. The others are indicated on the map attached to the development agreement. We can stick a pin in the map and say we're going to put the well here within that circle. The reason we have those circles drawn on the little map that was prepared and attached to the development agreement, so we have a little bit of flexibility on location of the actual well site. But we took into account the sanitary control easement when those circles were put on that map.
The one, I've got it right here, Paul, it's a little hard to see, but the original one on this one didn't show the school property. And so it would have lost 4 lots with the sanitary control on this one. I don't think that's right there. The next one's is pretty far north. We'll be a lot better to make sure we articulate that one as we go forward.
And Joe, once we reach out there, we wouldn't necessarily have to drill that well at that point in time. We would just claim that space and make sure that we had the space to do that.
That's our intention.
The difference in this one is that because the school is there, we knew it would be more economical to go in and move now than to go in later and tear everything up at the school to put our well in.
That's our preference.
That's why we're having to put the well in now. That was the goal.
School wanted to use it, and we didn't want to completely disarray everything once that school was built at the same time. That's been kind of the reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done this work.
Right.
Kind of my concept is, Joe, see if you agree with me, as the plats are reviewed and approved, these other units, and that's to be taken into consideration.
Right. Correct. We've talked, the development review team has talked about at least 2 or 3 times to make sure that that's on our radar. So the original circle is at the end of the cul-de-sac, and there was actually no tie-in on that one. It's supposed to be on one of the commercial lots on the original concept plan.
I know it's supposed to be longer term, that's what we talked about, but just thinking about it, the development does take off quickly, and the cost of putting those transmission lines in now versus after the city streets in there, and get through that, I mean, I would think that's something we probably ought to think through.
We've talked about that. We've talked about that at our meetings here.
What y'all come up with, how much more difficult, how much more expensive is it gonna be to put in those lines? 10 years from now, and it's all developed out.
We didn't have a cost. We knew it's an issue.
Mayor, we have not specifically studied that aspect
No.
as far as the difference in cost between pre-developed and developed, as far as installing necessary.
Dan, does the bar ditch help us in this case?
Yes and no. It has pros and cons.
Okay. But that,
Approved,
okay.
it's also deeper.
So we have some, so there is another option there that isn't available in some other neighborhoods maybe, because of the bar ditch.
Say again?
The bar ditch does give us an option possibly for down the road, as opposed to going down the middle of the road.
Absolutely.
We never intended it for it to be this quick. I think it's always been having this extra one get thrown in there right now is kind of a keen to me, but a lot of it is, is to help the school. That's the reason we did it, to help our partner. They wanted it, so we want to be a good partner, and that's what we're doing.
They've been doing irrigation wells in all their facilities.
Doing what?
They've been doing irrigation wells in all their facilities in school.
Oh, yeah. You know, I think for us five commissioners is, we're taking taxpayer money, $68,000 that we didn't really plan on. And I don't know what's going on, but that's the only issue really. I think the issue with the school having these wells all the dancing is just the fact that $68,000 probably should come in there rather than plan for it. That's the only reason I brought up Gary was saying is maybe we'll look at everything else and make sure. Might be better to do something now than later.
I held on this project for a while because we did not have the money to do it in the budget.
Yeah.
The reason we had the money to do it is because we were denied the downtown project. The grant for the downtown project, the money for that we lost is going to the well.
That's fine, I'm just thinking that the mayor said that might be better to do some of the other stuff now than that may cost us 10 times more later, 20 times. I don't know.
What is the cost to develop it out later versus, that's a big difference.
Okay, now let me ask you this, then we want to know the complete development of the 4 wells, correct?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I think really, Dan, the main thing for me is just that there's a plan how you're gonna get everything else. So we don't get in this mind again, next time might be $168,000. That's all I'm saying, just don't look at it.
Agreed, Paul. Very, very well taken. We agree.
And then probably how much more it would cost if we wait till it's all built out. I think probably the preference is, I don't think we need the wells that we would wait, but how much more would it cost us to do that?
Be sure you calculate those future costs based on after inflationary rate.
May not be exactly what happens 20 years from now. We've got a concept coming for the entire section at least. We can kind of see where the streets are and stuff. We can work through some.
There's 2 off 2590, and then there's going to be 2 off the access way on the other side, on the east side of the camp.
We're talking transmission line as well.
Yeah, everything down, getting it out of the subdivision and transmission.
Just like we're gonna use it.
Correct.
Okay. We can definitely use it.
Any more questions? I would entertain a motion if we're going to go this route.
Mr. Mayor, I move we award the base and alternate bid for the drilling and completion of well number 38, Contra Resources Mid-Continent Incorporated, in the amount of $354,740.
Second.
Have a motion second to award the drilling bid. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, that now takes us to exec session pursuant to 551.074, personnel matters, municipal court judge, 551.074,
He called me.
If he'll, you know, she doesn't have symptoms. And he's good. He needs to take extra precautions at work. He's good until she shows some symptoms. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Oh, if they said 3 days. It takes 3 days. That's better than you want. Wait another day. Yeah.
John, I think we need the key.
Yeah, I know where it is. I thought also I say, well, no, the one thing I've talked to her.
I'm sorry, it's hard to answer questions in something you didn't even believe.
You know, the key I said I didn't have.
Are you gonna continue to play that part of the rest? Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Good, good. I think that's the part we just hadn't talked through. Okay, what about the, you know, the transmissions lines that we play? On board too. Yeah, exactly. They give them as well sides. And so do we have to pay for maintenance of the lots, or is that? That sanitary easement, do we have to? You know, it probably doesn't make sense to do it unless it's, you know, $1 million deal. Then, yeah, we probably ought to do it.
That's how.
He said he's going to get key.
It's the thought. I'm saying that's the way we have to go.